So I don't think I'm the only person who's struggled with art block since the pandemic, but I feel like in addition to just not feeling motivated to draw, I've also lost a lot of the passion that I used to have. And maybe part of this is just growing pains, going into adulthood and having all of these new responsibilities, but I feel like it isn't just about having less time for my hobbies. I also kind of feel like it's pointless to do these hobbies now, and that makes me really sad. Art used to be such a big part of my identity, and I feel like if I don't like it anymore, it might mean that I'm not being authentic to myself anymore. So I wanted to try to restart my passion. I started this journey where I made a list of all of the most fun, indulgent, and low stakes art challenges I could think of, and I want to try and tackle them one by one to see if I can figure out how to rediscover my love for art. And challenge number one is making a persona. Now, when I envision making a persona, I'm actually thinking about just making the most indulgent character possible. I know that I used to make these types of characters when I was a kid, and I always had a lot of fun making them, and I'm sure that Mary Sue criticism websites would have had a field day with the characters I used to make, but I kind of want to recapture that enthusiasm I had. I want this character to be free of any sort of self-imposed restraints or fears of criticism. I just want to put in everything that I love into it and find the things that made art fun for me as a kid and see if I can still hold on to them as an adult. This was really hard though, because I feel like I'm used to imposing so many restraints on myself, so trying to go buck wild all of a sudden was way harder than I thought it would be. So I wanted to start by taking inspiration from, I guess, mascot characters, things like personas or like characters that I think tend to have a lot of color or detail into them. I feel like I tend to see a lot of non-human characters that people will use, and put a lot of detail into, so I wanted to try that because I don't really design a lot of non-human characters, and I felt like making a non-human character from my overindulgent fantasy creature would make a lot of sense. So I started by doing a robot, and at first things felt really right. I actually really like this iteration that's on screen right now. I think it has a nice silhouette. I think it's really cute. The colors I'm not a super big fan about. I think there's just too much black. And I think it's something that I had to go back and forth on a lot with the coloration process here. But I feel like after I finished my sketch, the character just started getting further and further away from me, I guess. Like, it started feeling less like a self-insert or like a robot persona of myself and more just of a random robot girl that I was designing who happened to have a lot of design elements that I liked. Like, I like that hat, I like those ears, but when I look at this character, I don't really see myself in it. It just kind of feels like another generic character, and if it's another generic character, then it's something that I can critique and develop in a certain way, which is the exact thing that I'm trying to avoid here. I ended up liking one of the other drawings when I went back and edited this, so I actually tried to redraw the character one more time with a different sketch to see if I could find any merit in it, and I think this character still kind of looks cute, but it's not quite hitting the mark that I need. Moving on. I thought that since the previous character I was working on didn't have as much of a connection to me as I thought it should, I thought I should start off by looking at some different portraits that I've done of myself in the past and re-examining the avatar that I normally use for myself. Now, normally when I draw myself, it's kind of a toss-up between being very cartoony and being very graphic designy. I'll almost say Gorilla's style. I use a lot of pure blacks and a lot of saturated colors, which might play into why there were so many saturated colors in the last iteration. And I think this portrait that I really like tends to have more of an inhuman vibe. I want to go in a different direction from this though. So since I'm used to drawing myself as more, I'll say androgynous, and with these deeper colors, I wanted to try looking more into pastels and something sort of round and cute. These first few iterations are actually pretty similar to how I currently draw myself, just with the body proportions a bit more stretched out to make room for this big, fluffy dress. Around the time where I did these sketches, I had just gotten into Lolita fashion, and I was starting to gain a little bit more confidence about wearing big, puffy dresses out in the real world. So it felt like a very good symbolic gesture, I'll say, to try and implement them into my new avatar. I tried working with a couple different iterations, and they were all cute, but I didn't feel like they were hitting quite the same amount of indulgence that I was looking for. Like, they were cute and all, but I felt like they just didn't have enough of a mascotty vibe, and they weren't quite over the top enough. And I go over these types of designs for a good while, I think, trying out very slight variations on the same dress. I think I draw this character in this same dress like 10 or 20 times, and I'm just hoping that something will look different, but the silhouettes are all basically the same. So at this point, I start thinking that maybe the style itself could be an issue. The proportions, perhaps, that maybe if I just nailed the proportions correctly, then that would feel more like a good avatar to me. I did this off screen, but I started doing a bunch of different style studies of art styles that I liked. I think I was looking at Panty and Stocking and Scott Pilgrim and Skullgirls and just all of my favorite concept artists to see if I could identify what sort of proportions I liked, and this is kind of a distillation of those different style studies. And I went back and forth on that, and then eventually found this body type that I liked. So I ended up drawing this base body and thinking, okay, well, if I like this base body, then maybe I can just do a bunch of different outfit iterations on her, and she'll eventually look like something that I like. But as you can see, that is not what happened. At least not for now. So at this point, I very briefly wondered if I should just start from scratch and go in a completely different direction. These were months apart, by the way. Like, this happened over the course of several months with me doing different iterations of avatars and revisiting different avatar ideas. So this one is supposed to be centered around a sakura flower, a cherry blossom flower. I thought maybe having one sort of icon to draw everything together would help me with the design process. And it did, but it didn't help it feel like me, so this is kind of just a repeat of the little robot persona that I had previously. I think she's really cute, though. I would be interested in going back and working on her some more. Okay, so running out of options, I remember that months later, I was just randomly struck with inspiration because I started thinking about an outfit that I had worn fairly recently that I thought was really cute. And then everything just kind of clicked after that. I was thinking about different types of Pinterest outfits or outfits that I had seen on people just out and about. And that's kind of where this next and final stage of design iteration comes from. So now I was mostly coming from outfits that I had either previously worn or currently wore and just turning it up a little bit. So this bunny hood that you see here is kind of inspired by outfits that I used to wear as a kid. And I remember that I was very keen on animal ears as a child, and I still am now, but I don't really wear them much. So I felt like adding some animal ears was a good way to do a little bit of a nod to my childhood, and also to give me a little bit more indulgence and make the character look a bit more mascot-like. I eventually settled on turning them into headphones, kind of like those cat ear headphones, and adding a hood at the back to sort of separate it from her hairpiece. As a kid, I always wanted to have just solid pastel pink hair, so it felt appropriate to give this character that pastel pink hair. I figured I should give this character a name, so I think I'll call her Proxy for now. I don't think she's perfect, but I do think that this is a design that I feel happy with and something that I can build off of in the future. And as a bonus, I gave her this cute little bunny rabbit thing with the little flowers in its ears, and I like to think of it as this avatar's version of my dog. So I'm going to call it Marzipan. So this character is not terribly original, as you can see, And it should not have taken months to get here, I think, but we made it, and I actually really like her. I think she's very different from how I would have thought to go about designing her before. I think that a lot of these elements are actually stolen from characters that I've either worked on in the past or just happen to admire, but I feel like that's kind of the point. The point of this challenge was to sort of revive my passion for art by identifying things that I liked and trying to indulge in them without worrying about meeting these imaginary criteria that I've built up in my head. I should mostly just focus on trying to have fun with it, and I think this was a good first step. So hopefully that means we'll be seeing a lot more of each other. I hope this made you smile, and I hope you have a wonderful day.